So The Amateur stars Rami Malek as Charles Heller, a CIA desk agent tied to doing surveillance around the globe to gather intel, get Face ID matches from traffic cameras, that sort of thing. That is, until he finds out that his wife in London has been killed by a gang of terrorists. As he attempts to track them down from behind a computer monitor of his CIA office, he realizes his own agency is taking it way too slow and decides to take matters into his own hands, to track down and kill those who killed his wife. Now, doesn't that sound like the most generic plot for a thriller you've ever heard? Like, honestly, even if you can't think of a specific example of a movie that's done this before, I'm sure part of you hears this premise and is like, what is this, some sort of like airport spy thriller novel you pick up before your flight? Which you'd be right. However, The Amateur does bring a unique concept to the table, and that is, Charles Heller is the equivalent of me in high school. Dorky, a computer nerd, and can't even shoot his shot, let alone shoot a gun. This makes for super interesting conflict. You know how someone like Batman is more interesting because of his faults, because of his weakness? For example, the fact that he's human, or his no-kill rule, and no powers except for, of course, affluent wealth. The same approach applies here. Charles Heller and his journey to hunt down and track these targets is more interesting because there is no journey where he's running after one of them on foot. He's the one being chased after. He's the one always running away. There is no scene where you see Charles in the hotel across the street with his sniper crosshairs on someone, right? He has to think differently from that because he's not a soldier. He's not an assassin. So you get a film where instead he has to isolate his target and find other ways to kill them outside of a gun or a knife fight. As someone who is so far removed from John Wick as a protagonist can be in a film like this, Charles Heller has to rely on the strengths that he has. That unique scenario makes the tension here so palpable, especially in the second act as he stumbles his way into the shoes of an assassin that he doesn't know how to fill. Rami Malek plays this role without flaw. Honestly, it would have been so easy for Charles to come across as this bumbly idiot who assassinates people on accident like it's a Three Stooges sketch, you know, like he spills oil on the ground or something and, you know, some guy slips on it and then trips and falls and dies and that's how he assassinates it. No, this isn't played off as a comedy. Rami Malek portrays him instead as someone who is intelligent and confident, just incapable and inexperienced. That is a tough rope to balance on without this feeling like Three Stooges, and Rami Malek and the producers walk that line perfectly. Now, all of that setup was in the trailer for this film, so unless you've never heard of this and you're watching this review because your dad had it on in the background of the living room to get his Tom Clancy fix in, you likely already knew all of that going in. So you might be asked, what else does The Amateur have to offer? Thankfully, what I did not know going in was this unadvertised side plot that was my favorite part of the whole movie, and that side plot involves Lawrence Fishburne. First of all, dude still got it, man. Wow. His character is someone who was hired to hunt down Charles, and he just so happens to be very good at hunting people. So already, while Charles is on the back foot hunting his targets, he's being tracked himself. And with how the movie frames Fishburne's experienced assassin as this hulking harbinger of death, that second act of this movie where all of that goes down has its tension and intrigue doubled. I loved the second act of this movie. I loved it. The only problem is they throw it away. By the third act, this film just forgets about its most interesting subplot. Then the writing just starts to fall apart in general. Where in the first half, the script frames everything Charles does, tracking his target, finding a way to subdue them by non-conventional means, and you going on that journey with him. Act 3 relies on Deus Ex Machina storytelling, aka pulling a rabbit out of a hat to subdue his target instead. You don't see the hunt anymore. You don't see the build-up and the outsmarting. None of that, so you only see the outcome. This whole movie's hook is just completely forgotten about. I will say, while the movie throws in its most interesting towel way too early, it does land on a strong ending. Where it forgoes Lawrence Fishburne's hunt for Charles and Charles's hunt for the people who killed his wife, it fills that void with a really well-executed character moment for Charles instead. Honestly, I wouldn't have changed a thing about this movie's final confrontation for that reason. And that alone cemented Charles in my mind as someone more than just a generic spy thriller action movie hero. But man, I just know the creators had to have been like watching this in the editing room before releasing it and seeing them move on from the Lawrence Fishburne part of the second act to the third and thinking, dude, we really had something there. This should have been the whole film, and I'd agree with them. Overall, I'm glad I saw The Amateur though. It throws away its best ideas way too soon. But when those ideas are present, they're executed flawlessly. And anyone who wants a spy thriller that does just enough to stand out from a generic action spy thriller, I do suggest you give The Amateur a try to see those ideas through, but definitely do so when it hits streaming. But what did you think of The Amateur? Or where do you think spy thrillers can go next in the movie theaters, especially after getting Black Bag and The Amateur in the span of like 2 months? What do you want to see from another spy thriller to make it stand apart and be unique? Let me know down in the comments below, and for more movie reviews over a cup of coffee, like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.